Hello, hello. Welcome to episode 161 of the Titanforge podcast. I'm Gratnos, joined by Tettles.
What up? Doing questions for Q&A because I forgot.
Oh, love that. And
grabbing 'em.
Trell.
What up?
What up? We are this week, after a couple of longer episodes the last few weeks, going to do a little bit of a shorter one, I suspect, this time around. We have a few different news points to talk about, such as the happenings with World of Warcraft in China, Mythic Plus changes that have been ongoing recently, the patch 10.0.5, and the Revival Catalyst, third name in 6 months for that thing.
Yeah, they did rename it, didn't they?
And then we've got the interview between Naguura and Matt Villers on Mythic Plus stuff, which is summarized. It's like a 30-minute video. It's a great watch, but we'll go through the WoW summary, pick out a couple points from it, and give our takes on it as well. But do recommend everybody to watch that or listen to it as well. And there will be a link in the description to that one too. So, in other news as well, myself and Tettles have both slain the bird who killed Razagath. Congratulations, Tettles.
Congratulations, Ratnos.
Thank you, thank you.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you, thank you.
Trell?
Yeah,
When
almost
bird
there.
die?
Almost there. We're in P2 on the third shield-ish, that area.
Yeah,
Okay. Y'all are really
Almost there.
close. Yeah.
once
Probably,
you...
like 2 raid nights away, something like that. Not
I
bad.
swear, once you get to P2 with 20 players alive, that boss is on a very short life expectancy. That's the hard part. At least for my guild, that was the hard part, was getting to P2 with 20 players alive. Once we did that, the boss started falling over.
Yeah,
Consistent.
we're like 100 pulls in. We've gone there actually to P2 twice with 20 people alive. So we're actually maybe pretty close. I don't know. It's hard to tell because the first 2 phases are so hard compared to the rest of the fight.
Yeah.
Consistency in keeping your battle res is actually pretty critical. Like, if the difference between if you go into that last phase with 3 battle res versus 0 is very
It's night and
large.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you kind of have some spots in that last phase where, like, realistically,
people.
somebody's going to die. Yeah, there's just,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, true.
not much that can be done
Well,
about it. In some cases, the Warlock's going to die 4 times or something like that. That happens. Not much to be done about it.
Aren't we sacking people in the last phase still? Or is that not the strat anymore?
At least my guild strat involved basically having a spot where we kind of presumed people would probably die, but if they could find a way to live it, that was great. But the
Gotcha.
big thing was not blowing up the
It's-
raid.
It's third circles is what
Yeah.
it is. It's the
You like send them out into the storm, yeah.
we didn't send them out in the storm. They just like stood there and we gave
Yeah.
it away from them.
So
Hmm.
there's 2 different ways you can actually handle that, right? Some guilds would freedom those people and then have them gate into the storm, and everybody else didn't have to move. And then some guilds would have the other 17 players or 15 players, because the tanks don't have to be there, gateway away instead. Either of those
We,
strats work, yeah.
We were APTing and like gating over there.
APT,
It was like take the APT whenever you can.
forbidden technology. Oh my god. How
Yeah,
do you
says
get
the
one
guy
of those into your raid?
Says the guy with the GS in his raid.
GS is good, man. GS is really good.
Yeah, we don't know anything about that either.
Yeah.
Oh, you played Disc Holy. I thought you meant you played Disc Shadow.
No, we played Disc Holy. It was accursed, but it was good.
He was about to say something much
it was
meaner.
beans.
Yeah.
But no, it was good. It was actually it was like P1 was the hard part with that, but then it was good for the rest of the fight. But P1,
P1
especially, dude, before they were Void Elves, our Holy Priest had to spec the thing where you res out of your angel form, and then he was sacrificing himself to the breath before the 4th pushback, and then gripping our hunter during that in angel form, because you can grip an angel form, and that was the only.
Oh my
and then
God.
if the breath was ever baited too far forward, it was just a wipe because he couldn't. He couldn't
I know
die to it.
I know this is outside of the scope, kind of like of this episode. Is that boss too hard? Like, I'm surprised that they made a boss that so many classes can't do.
I believe.
Well,
Good.
I mean, I think every class can do it now, right?
Can they?
They need help, right? Like your evokers are giving plane tickets to your priests or whatever, and your paladin on some pushbacks, right?
Can
Yeah, that's
Paladin
true.
do it by themselves?
So paladin
Can
has they live 1, they gateway 2 and 5, they bubble 1 of 3 and 4, so they only need help on
They need help.
1 of
though.
3 and
Like,
4.
They need to be
Probably on 3.
gripped or
Yeah,
like, I
honestly,
guess
maybe they could even stay on the platform on 3. It's just they get back slow if they like horse and run against it all the way. I don't know.
I don't know, but Priest doesn't have horse. Like I don't think Priest is living without Evoker saving them.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we didn't really try. Like, we still used all of our cooldowns from the hard pushback, like from back when pre-nerf. But still, to me it feels sort of like a Painsmith type thing, where it's like, okay, this is maybe fine difficulty level for Hall of Fame, but like
Yeah, it's top 100.
as that starts closing up, I think Blizzard should look at making it so that you like if you're just a guild that's out there randomly with one evoker and like a holy, a disc, and a shadow priest, like how are you supposed to challenge that encounter?
Yeah.
I think Nerf was tweeting about like their comp being so bad for that fight, like that level of comp where you're just like, how am I supposed to kill this boss?
Yeah, even my guild with 2 evokers, 2 priests, a paladin, and a hunter is like it was kind of rocket surgery figuring out how to handle that. But like we were able to do it, but we were doing it with like a daisy chain of evoker rescue, that priest grips somebody, that priest then grips some. Like there was some shenanigans involved in making that work. That we were able to execute it, but like the ability to plan and execute something like that is not something that I think should exist below like top 100.
I do understand. Yeah, like I understand that it's a really weird thing to be talking about because only like very few guilds have killed Razgeth until this point. But you sit there and you look at that fight and you're like, damn, that's hard for like average cutting edge guilds. Like, damn, what the hell is that?
Yeah, it is a hard fight for sure.
Good. I liked it. Actually, that was. I know that some people didn't necessarily enjoy it. I thought it was pretty good though.
From a tank perspective, I think it was pretty boring.
Yeah,
especially
Squishy
like
was saying this. Squishy was saying the same thing to me. I thought it was annoying.
Warriors and DKs in particular, which like my guild comp was warrior DK. Like I was playing a warrior and I felt like I had an easy time because I have 2 charges, a heroic leap, and an extra heroic leap whenever there's a time spiral to get back to the boss, and shield charge if it's up, which it is on one of them. And so just like you only ever need to use like 2 or 3 of those buttons, and you're back in range of the boss. So like the pushback doesn't matter, the tank damage is pretty low. And I felt like it was easy for me. And then the Blood DK is sitting there pressing Death's Advance, not moving at all, taking less, like having an easier time living the tank damage as well. It's just like, oh my goodness, there's nothing happening.
And then the rest of that fight for them is like, I don't want to say it's the same as Heroic, it's a little bit different, but it's like, it's close enough, right?
The first intermission has, I would say there's like a lot of room for tank skill expression on the first intermission, but other than that, I don't think there's much else.
True. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you're good.
Okay, we will carry on then and move into our show proper as we begin with news of Blizzard China and NetEase failing to reach a agreement to keep WoW alive in China. So there's been a big back and forth and a response, and there's this Wowhead post you can read about it, and there's some tweets from NASDA as well that I think do a good job of summarizing what's been going on and the sentiment. But the TLDR is they initially were gonna separate, right? Like they were initially, so you need to have like a licensing partner to a Chinese company licensing partner to publish a game in China, right? And that agreement was expiring and was not going to get renewed. Blizzard was looking for a new partner, couldn't find one to take over the game under terms that they were happy with, I guess, by the time that this January 24th deadline rolled around. So they went back to NetEase and offered a 6-month extension. The terms of that agreement were not enough for NetEase. NetEase was looking for at least a year, it looks like, of extension. 6-month thing was maybe due to the timing of the Microsoft acquisition or something like that. Maybe for that reason
seems, that's hearsay. It seems unconfirmed.
Yeah,
could be true.
A lot of this is going to be hearsay, but that at least the parts that we do know for sure, right, is that now the game is basically for sure shutting down in China on the 24th. And
that's crazy.
Players are able to download and like save their account progression, but that feature also has reportedly had some bugs and issues and stuff. And it's kind of like you're just getting this time capsule of data that then hopefully at some point in the future, when Blizzard China has a new partner, you will then be able to give that to them and get your character back. But still, it is a really rough place to be a player right now.
That's nuts, man.
I can't imagine that happening in my character, because like just thinking about it, like I play WoW so much, like if one day Blizzard was just like, yeah, we're shutting it down. We couldn't find a new partner. It's just like, what the hell? It really does suck. I feel super bad for these guys, especially too like watching how they've progressed. Like from like an esports perspective, MDI and TGP, the Chinese region has been performing quite well in the most recent like TGPs and MDIs. Um, the Race World First, they could be a little bit better, but they also love Classic too, which seems like that's also shutting down. And like they win the Classic Race World First, the most prestigious of all World of Warcraft events.
Back when the game was truly difficult, that's the thing. That's the Ulduar coming out. That I think is going to really show all of us retail players where real difficulty was. Back with hard modes done right, not just some toggle that you switch on some UI panel, but you actually had to engage with the boss, and even finding the hard modes was part of the challenge and the fun of that raid. But yeah, I agree. It's just sad all around the situation over there. So hopefully players are able to get some solution soon. But right now there's just no knowledge of when the next tier is going to be. I think there's a good chance they're going to miss some amount of months of WoW being up, and maybe the next tier, the tier after that, I don't know.
Heard a rumor that there may be some of the top end Chinese players playing on Illidan. Unconfirmed. I can't confirm, but I heard a rumor that some of them were playing on Illidan now.
Yeah, and I also heard that Blizzard had some now like global servers set up that were the server architecture is actually over near China, but not in China, so the ping wouldn't be too bad, and maybe there will be some relocation to those servers. I don't know.
You have to play through VPN though, right?
Yeah, you have to play through a VPN to play on Illidan anyways, though, as well, right?
Yeah. God, it sucks. I saw apparently there's some like pseudo WoW clone or something that Mr. GM also tweeted about. Did you see that?
It looked like one of 5,000 other MMOs that look like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Hopefully it gets fixed soon.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not an area of super expertise for us, I guess. It's like what exactly is going on over there. So may have misreported something about it, but the TLDR of it is definitely just sad. So
hope it gets fixed.
Hope it gets fixed, and stay tuned to the Wowhead posts about it. Let's move on to cover M+ changes that have been hot fixed on the 17th. That was this Tuesday. We had, so first of all, explosive affix. Not surprised to see certain boss mobs no longer spawning explosive orbs. It was funny about this as well, because I'm pretty sure people were talking about these boss mobs, whether or not they would spawn explosives, and then they just did, and it was pretty nasty for a brief period of time, which was then fixed. So, I guess good that it was fixed quickly. It's possible it's the kind of thing where it's like they literally already knew they were going to have to fix it. They just had to do it by hotfix instead of earlier. But yeah, this is definitely necessary on Overgrown Ancient on Meldressa.
I never got to see it before they fixed it, but I'm curious if it was like more than 8 orbs at a time because of how many mobs there were. Because I feel like I haven't seen more than 8 orbs in a long time.
I think that orbs have like a scaling that makes it so you only ever are seeing like 5 at once. I think I could be wrong though.
I don't know anything about that, but I know that they can. I know that individual mobs can only spawn explosives every so often, and like they can't spawn them while stunned. There's like weird. There's weird conditions on like.
Yeah, that's why whenever you AOE stun and the AOE stun ends, you immediately see like 4 explosives pop up. Yeah. We also saw some nerfs to Azure Vaults. Arcane Fury's piercing shards impact damage. That's the frontal from the rock dudes in Azure Vault. Has been nerfed. The Forbidden Knowledge cooldown's been nerfed. Arcane Constructs have been nerfed. Crystal Thrashers no longer use splintering shards.
Yeah, that's the tall dudes, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's the circle from the tall dudes.
Yeah,
the ones that they put on the players.
Okay.
Yeah, they still do their circle
like
around them.
AoE.
Yeah. Null Magic Hornswogs, that's the toads, been nerfed. Talash Greywing's health has been nerfed. There's now a time so you don't insta-tick from the ground out of the frost bomb. That's a huge nerf. That is a tremendously big nerf to that. Umbral Skulls.
I kind of liked how that was before you move on, just because it had some counterplay where if you like ran and jumped forward right as it expired, you'd have the momentum to get out no matter what you played, what class you were. But this is definitely a good change for most players, so they can just get out no matter what now.
Okay, I liked the counterplay potential. if I didn't also get one shot whenever I fucked it up,
Yeah.
that's the difference. Like if I'm saving myself 30% of my HP, it's totally fine. I'm getting like 100 to 0.
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. Insta-ticking ground effects like that as well. I feel like ground effects should only insta-tick if they're like big fire, not just like this icy ground that literally spawns on players. I don't know. I feel like that insta-ticking is
True, dying to icy ground is kind of annoying.
yeah.
How did I guess the only one that I had a question about was like the Hornswogg HP reduction. Was that necessary?
I mean, those mobs were kind of sponges, damage sponges.
Yeah.
I think it was fine. It's not like a huge deal, but like they would live for a long time just because of how much they move around. So I could kind of see the purpose there.
It's a good way of inadvertently nerfing the timer in the key.
Yeah.
Then we also saw nerfs to the last boss, health, and also how much movement speed Oppressive Miasma now reduces is slightly less oppressive, although still quite oppressive. Ruby Life Pools also saw a serious set of nerfs. The Cinder Bolts got their damage nerfed in half, which I think was a change I called for last week, maybe. But this is this change seems pretty good because that thing was very one-shotty on a very low-key level, especially when combined with the unavoidable damage that the big mobs, the Inferno, puts out.
Some people were calling for maybe the Cinder Weaver Cinder Bolt, instead of nerfing it by 50%, have it cast 50% less frequently.
That was, I think, Naguura's tweet, right?
Yeah, what do you guys
Yeah.
think? I think that the damage is probably fine. Although those packs are really hard, generally, but because 50% cast reduction is not the same as 50% damage reduction.
I mean, this is kind of like a different reason that I would rather them do it that way, but I do agree with Naguura because I don't like mobs that don't move, period, unless you kick them. Like these mobs cast so frequently that unless you lock them out of their spell, they're gonna just plant for the entire pull. And I've never liked mobs like that because it frees up like your comp to do more things if they move every other second or so after they cast. But that's just a completely unrelated thing. It is funny that they nerfed it by literally 50% though. Like that's how strong they were before then.
I agree with Naguura as well now because I want my Spell Reflect to not be nerfed, and this does nerf Spell Reflect. So sad. Prot Warriors are down so bad. We need a compensatory buff urgently. They also reduce the damage of Rolling Thunder from Thunderhead and Flame Gullet's Molten Blood, which is the sub 50% prideful stacking thing, by 30 and 25% respectively. They nerfed the Dot of Inferno by 25%. So the whole upstairs ring, most of the death logs have included one or more of these abilities that got nerfed.
That Inferno is only from the trash mob, right? Not from the boss Inferno as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think this touches because it's Blazebound Firestorm on the boss, not Blazebound Destroyer, even though it's the same model and has very similar ability kit.
I remember trailing over to Ruby Life Pools earlier this week, and we're like, "Oh yeah, they nerfed it." I'm like, "I don't know if they nerfed the boss."
Yeah, they already didn't. They had nerfed that boss already early on, although I don't think they nerfed the add component of it by much. Yeah. But yeah, they nerfed the boss again here with a cast time of the kick, a little bit easier.
Oh yeah, true.
And then they nerfed the last boss.
It's good they nerfed the dragons though. The two dragons were already like unplayable at 24 plus before that. Like people were gonna have to make routes where you didn't kill either dragon and you just fought the second boss in this tiny little enclosed area where you either killed it or ran out of time and died to the dragons.
I think that like just in general, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit later. I think that the frequency of tuning that they've been doing for M+ dungeons and like the things that they are hitting with the M+ tuning has actually been more or less spot on with about like how the players are feeling relative to the dungeons. Now, I don't think that the dungeons are balanced great versus one another, but I think that like the major pain points are the things that sometimes feel unfair inside of the key has been. I mean, we're seeing pretty frequent tuning.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree.
If you told me that a big set of nerfs was coming to 2 dungeons this week and asked me to pick the 2 dungeons to land them on, I would have said I think Ruby Life Pools and Azure Vault, right? Maybe not Azure Vault, but I think Azure Vault's definitely a good one as well to nerf for like. Even the thing about Azure Vault is it's sort of developing this huge amount of counterplay and route customization for coordinated groups, but man, is that place a nightmare for pugs. It's,
that dungeon has by far the lowest amount of time 20s.
Yeah.
But like whenever you watch high-end groups play it, it doesn't look like that bad. It looks pretty reasonable for super high-end groups that are like you said, coordinated.
Yeah. So I think nerfing that dungeon makes sense in that context, although it's not necessarily like the key that I'm most dreading out of my, to run. And if I'm running with a good, if I'm doing some Keystone of the Rat or something, I'm staying out of Azure Vault. That place is banned.
How have you felt about like class balance and class changes and like frequency of that? Because we actually gotten more than that than normal.
Yeah, especially when you factor in that like 10.0.5 is coming next week with a huge set of class changes as well, right? Like this is a big suite of changes. We can actually take a look at the 10.0.5 content updates just on the class side of things as well here. Like look at this set of things. Like if you go back in time, this amount of class balance changes less than 2 months into the expansion, right, it's huge. There's so much happening to so many different classes. It's not like a lot of it is like more. They're not like it's a lot of small changes and a lot of like tweaking of underplayed talents, but I think this is really, really promising.
It's surprising like how much we've gotten so far, in regards to dungeon tuning and class tuning.
Yeah. I think the class tuning has been above average, even factoring out the 10.0.5, how soon it is and how much class balance is in it. And then there's a huge amount in here.
How do you feel like dungeon balance has been this season regards to classes, specifically in regards to classes?
Like Jarno said, I think the dungeons aren't that balanced versus each other.
Yeah,
I think they have done a ton of good tuning changes for the dungeons though since the launch. Like I think they've made dozens of abilities not recast on stops, and that's just huge. Like that design by itself is like a huge plus for this season, because once people figure out how to use their utility, then that just solves like half the mechanics in the dungeons now, rather than just being punished even if you use your utility.
From a class perspective, it seems like DPS are either we're in like a season 1 of Shadowlands kind of situation where people are just kind of playing everything, so nothing is locked in yet, or maybe the meta just is like a little bit more wide open for DPS than it is normally. For healers, it seems like it's the most locked down, between just Preservation Evoker and Restored Druid.
That is 2 viable healers at the very high end, which is one more than we see in a lot of seasons. So
yeah,
I don't know.
And then Ellesmere's playing Paladin, and then like the tanking role. Yeah, we see a lot of Prot Warrior, but like I feel like a lot of tanks are good.
Yeah, I think the tanks are actually in a decent spot now after a lot of buffs to the non-Prot Warriors. I still think they should have reverted the 10% DR, except for on Prot Warrior. That would have just done a better job faster, in my opinion. But I'd say every tank can do close to what Prot Warrior is capable of, except maybe Bear. Maybe Bear can do it too. I just haven't seen it very much.
Yeah, the deal with like tanks and healers is that there's only one of them in a dungeon, so it's very difficult to get decent representation, because you're going to have tanks and healers migrate to the best every single season that they can.
Yeah, for sure.
Stuff.
Yeah, I do think that the tank situation, Warrior is extremely good, but I do think that it's definitely true that like the Brew isn't as bad relative to Warrior as it looks on this chart, for instance. It's just
no, definitely not, because it just barely got buffed.
Yeah,
and it's getting buffed again next week, which will be huge.
But even before those buffs, itself,
I think the role itself is actually strong relative to the dungeons right now, which is
true.
Some seasons you have the role be weak relative to the dungeons, which exacerbates the problem even more, where it's like, oh my god, this
only
tank
one
can't
tank can
live
live.
This.
Yeah.
If the other tanks can't live, where it's like right now, I don't say all, because I haven't seen it true, but like most of the tanks can live if they're playing well.
Yeah, and they don't have threat issues. They can mostly take care of stop mechanics that are important themselves. It's just like night and day from last expansion.
Funnily enough, I actually think that Blood DK is the best tank in a couple of the dungeons. I think that Naka defensive is one of the ones where like Blood DK is probably the best tank, but like you're still not seeing tanks just fucking like roll into a Naka with a Blood DK.
Yeah, it's funny because like Blood DK is so nice for grips in that dungeon, but then you can spell reflect for huge damage on 2 of the bosses, and that's like.
But you can control undead that mob too.
That's true. The control undead thing is good. It's big.
What's better, spell reflect doing 70k damage on the last boss, or having like a drums lust every pack from the Mystic?
Yeah, it's both really
first
good.
boss area with a Blood DK. I'm pretty sure is just like maybe like a minute and a half faster just by getting mobs grouped up better.
Yeah, it does enable you to do better double pulls too, because you just literally can't double pull in that area without some kind of grip.
Yeah,
I don't know. A weird season. It seems like we're less locked in, but it could be due to like, I mean, we were less locked in Shadowlands season 1 until we saw like TGP, and then people really solidified the meta. Because I remember like one of the early things we were talking about was like healer diversity in Shadowlands season 1, and then it's just like at some point it just turned into only Vinther Holy Paladin.
Yeah, I mean, I think healer balance right now is probably the weakest of the roles, right? Like the gap between the best healers and the multiple worst healers, not just like one, but multiple bad healer specs that really like need some 5-player content buffs. I don't know, is pretty big. The tank side also looks pretty unbalanced, but I think some of that is more.
It's not role based is the problem.
Yeah,
right? It's just
like I mean, Warrior
it's
does
just
need some nerf.
exacerbated because Prot Warrior was so clearly better at the start of the season before all these little buffs have happened in between all the weeks. And so now people are going to slowly kind of catch back up on the other classes. But
maybe it's because Asmongold was playing it on stream.
Could be.
Maybe.
Then I do think DPS balance is also looking quite good. Like every group has a rogue, right? That's like almost every top group has a rogue.
Fine.
Rogue has
Rogues are
like
insane.
2 good specs. The third spec is also pretty good. And then like DHs are pretty common as well. But then beyond that, you're seeing Moonkins, Enhancement Shamans, Windwalkers, the odd Warlock here or there. So that's quite good. And then there's like some niche picks that people are using, like Warrior and Shadow Priest and DPS DK in some spots. And it's like playable-ish. So I don't know. It's pretty good.
Nothing feels mandatory. Nothing feels mandatory, I think, is the big thing where it's like you can actually, I don't want to say you should play without a rogue, but you can get away without playing with a rogue. Like even though rogue is the most popular pick at the high end, you can get away without playing with one.
Yeah, there is a run without a rogue in the top few. Honestly, though, the worst part of the balance isn't even the tank healer or DPS. It's the dungeon side. Like, look at this.
Yeah.
There's a 25 2-chested Shadow Moon Burial Grounds. Is there even a 25 time that's not a court or a Shadow Moon Burial Grounds? There's an Algathar.
So.
There's a Ruby Life Pools, but there's like one of each dungeon, and there's like 40 Court of Stars and Shadow and Burial Grounds here. And then we just get to the 24s, and it's all 2-chested courts and burial grounds. Court, burial ground, burial ground. Like, oh my god. That is the worst part of the balance here is this column, actually, not these columns, which is kind of wild.
Yep, I checked it out.
Yeah, something really cool about the season, though, is like we've been talking about the tuning rate that we're seeing. It changes what would become the stable meta quite often. So we see a bigger spread of classes still playing the game because they're not like stonewalled out of thinking they're not going to be good early in the season, like usually happens. Like, last season it was obvious that Survival and Destro were going to be insane the entire season. Even if they got nerfed a little bit, they were still going to be crazy.
We knew for this season,
yeah. And this season, it's already completely different than it was when the season started, and it continues to change a little bit, and it's really nice for everyone involved, I think.
I mean, we knew loosely what the meta was like approximately going to be from beta because we were able to do like a lot of keys, but even then it still evolved a lot for DPS perspective.
Yeah. I think the like Druid Evoker meta was pretty widely called for healers, and that has come true. The Warrior meta was also pretty widely called for tanks, but definitely the DPS side pretty good. And also like it's not like what
Boomkin said they were going to be terrible.
That's true. That's always
150k overall.
Yeah.
Well, you play with fucking moon. You play with Moonkins on the beta. You know they're fucking bad on the beta.
Gaslighters.
No, sometimes you get buffed. How it goes.
Now we also have the Revival Catalyst coming out next week, which some have and I think we've already talked about it on this show. Maybe if not, we've done it on several other places. Okay, we have about the Revival Catalyst timing. Blizzard has posted an FAQ about it, which answers a few questions that I think most people they've already answered in a few other places, but it's going to work functionally the same as last time with a few different things, meaning it will preserve tertiaries, it will change secondaries to preset ones for each slot. There will be a Wowhead post that like links all of the slots that your class can get if you're looking at if you want to look at what those stats would be on like bracers and belt and stuff for you. And crafting gear will not work in there as well. Crafting gear will not work in there is big news as well. They have said it before, but just make sure that you keep that in mind as you make your plans for the Catalyst. Other than that, though, that's there's nothing really new in this post.
They reaffirmed that you only have 6 charges and that you gain charges by doing activities. They never clarified what doing activities meant.
Yeah,
right?
it's a weekly quest, account wide, progressible across multiple characters that gives you a charge for all your characters. And the charges are capped at 6. It's not that you'll only gain 6 total charges, though. It's that you can only store 6 total charges, which I'm not 100% sure why that is necessary. Maybe it's just because they thought it looked kind of silly that we had like 73 charges or whatever in the end of Shadowlands. But either way, it's not. That's, I suspect, not a. That 6 number isn't the important one in terms of what's going to rate limit people. It's the 1 per week number that's like gonna limit us mostly.
I think that you should look at it like this. If you're watching, and you're like, oh, this looks like a downgrade. The big thing that you need to know about this is there's no more Cosmic Flux cost, and so
Right.
I'm willing to be capped at 6 to not have a Cosmic Flux cost on my alt.
Yeah, and so you have to do an account-wide quest in relevant raid, Mythic Plus, PvP, or world content, and that can be done on a single character or combined across multiple characters. So I assume that killing a couple of raid bosses or doing a couple of keys will finish this quest. If it's like a big slog that requires you to do more than like half of a raid clear or like 4 dungeons or something or 20 world quests, something like that, then maybe that's going to lead to grumbling. But if it's a reasonable number like that, I think this is a big upgrade to Cosmic Flux, especially because on your alt you don't need to do any of that. Like the account-wide nature of this is big for where Cosmic Flux was on alts, right? That was a pain point until they made it tradable across the account.
Strict upgrade, creation catalyst, inspiration catalyst, revival catalyst, what the hell it's called now. Good. I think it's a good system. It's a really good system
for sure. Did they mention in the post why they released it so late in the season?
No.
I think it's been an interview question a few times. That it's one of those interview questions where we kind of the community doesn't give it too much heed their answer because we don't like it. I think it was in like a Max interview at some point.
It's like the master leader question, man. It came up in every single interview, but like they were just like, yeah, the creation catalyst is getting revamped. They just kind of always said the same thing.
Yeah,
I feel like nobody likes how late it is, but
yeah, it does seem like it's a unifying thing among the community.
I mean, I think they view it as like a catch-up mechanic, and we view it as like the problem with only viewing it as a catch-up mechanic is that it's some people, M plus and PvP only players' only way of acquiring tier, right? Outside of like
getting lucky in the Great Fault.
I'm trying to find the any mention of it in an interview. I could be just making stuff up about it ever being talked about, but I'm pretty sure that it was asked once, and there's just it
was asked a couple times, I think.
The answer of like, we don't want people to be able to instantly get all this stuff, and we want people to have a reason to go into raid and stuff.
Yeah, I think that I personally wouldn't be shocked if they walk that back next tier with how much negative, or at least kind of given a little bit, and then instead of having it be at 8 weeks, they'll give it like 6, right? And give a little bit in.
Yeah, I mean, this was 6 weeks since the raid came out, right? When did the raid come out? The raid came out on December 13th, so 13, 20, so 20, 27, 3, 10, 7. Yeah, it's the 6th week of the raid being out is when the Catalyst is coming out here.
Yeah, it was 8th week of the patch, right?
Right, yeah. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if there's movement on them from this next time. I think it's one of the cases where like, yeah, is because like there's so much agreement on it. It's like anytime they don't change it, it's just going to be another thing that everybody complains about that whole patch.
I wouldn't be shocked if they walk it back a little bit.
I know, right? Like this has become a theme. Like they have listened to community feedback. If everyone's unified against something, eventually it does get changed in some way, or at least like compromised in some way. You know.
I mean, so let's think about it from Blizzard's perspective. If they view it as a catch-up mechanic and not supposed to be your sole way of getting tier, but the players are saying this is my only way of getting tier, like what are they supposed to do? I don't know. It's a tough one. Tough decision.
Yeah, for sure.
Not 100% sure on.
I do think get back though because of the overtly negative feedback on acquisition. I just hope they don't take the wrong approach from this and be like, oh, people don't like the catalyst. Catalyst is sick.
Yeah, true.
Gotta
That'd
love
be sad.
catalyst.
All right, let's do our tip of the week segment. Trell, you have a tip of the week here that is a cool weak aura based one. What you got
Yeah,
for
true.
us?
Yeah, I'll start while you think of a tip.
I got
down.
one. I want to go after you.
All right, well, this is a weak aura that tracks your weekly profession knowledge lockout, and it just puts text on your screen until you find whatever item gives you that knowledge. And so, like on Tuesday, it'll pop up, and you have like your 2 points from treatises that you can buy, or work order rather, and then you have like the stuff you can collect around the world, and it just tells you like where to get all those points, and it goes away once you get them for the week, which is really nice. It's like a little checklist.
Speaking of checklists, did you guys see the Ruby Whelp Shell checklist?
Oh yeah, How to Train Your Dragon weak aura thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Well, that's a good one too.
Dude, that has to be the most overhyped trinket I've seen in a while, where people like talked up that trinket. I'm pretty sure that thing is not that good.
I haven't tested it. I hear it was reported on with like really lucky procs, which is why it was so hyped.
I think it was reported on based on data. Like that trinket is like 1 RPPM from what I was looked at, and like looking at in spell data, it didn't look that good. Maybe there's something behind the scenes that is going to end up making it pretty good. But the
Yeah.
claims that it's as good as Grief Torch are just not.
Yeah, Grief Torch is wild. Like even Sims on Grief Torch, assuming it doesn't proc off of someone dying in your group, it's still like the best trinket for every single class. And then someone dies, and it's like 1.5 trinkets of any other trinket.
It's so good. Yeah, I got one out of my vault this week, and oh my goodness, it is something else. All right, my tip of the week is also important weak aura, useful weak aura based. This is eating Nam Nam. If you need a weak aura that will help you let your group know when you've started and finished eating, this one will say eating Nam Nam when you start eating, and then it will say Nam Nam done, smiley face, when you finish eating. And that can be really good.
You are the worst.
Yeah, you can go into the custom options and change what it says under actions as well. So if you want to say something slightly different, such as talking about which guild exploited which boss for which rank or whatever, that's all is an option as well. So do check out that weak aura, grab it if you want. Very, very good weak aura.
Trell, what week into the expansion are we?
We're on week 6 of the patch, as previously discussed.
Oh, okay.
Week 6 of the raid. Week 8 of the expansion.
Of the raid, sorry.
And so he's already phoning in the tip of the week segment and giving them eating nom nom.
Well, I think the Ruby Whelp Shell weak aura kind of counts as a bonus tip of the week there, kind of for the class. So I'll take that one as sort of mine.
Okay. Oh, word.
Then, yeah.
Oh, word.
Yeah.
All right. Fine. That's acceptable.
You know what? I accept this.
Yeah. Okay. What is our clip of the week here, Tuttles?
Useful clip of the week. So sometimes you get a mixed bag. Okay, so in Shadowman Burial Grounds, we know very difficult to get count. It's such a difficult dungeon. So
really
if you
tight
want
on time.
on some classes, you can actually jump across this wall, this barrier, and pull this pack early. And what this allows you to do is you get the little skitterlings. And whenever you pull the skitterlings, it just gives you 10 bonus count on the dungeon.
That is so cool.
Skitterlings go away if you kill the worm boss. That's why you do it before.
Yeah.
So if you do this, you don't need to get the like an extra exhumer or whatever early.
Right.
Or the double spiders.
Or the 2 spiders,
like
yeah.
Okay.
And the cool thing is like demon hunters and evokers can just double jump and do that. But like we did earlier in a group, Tuttles and I, where he like disengages a hunter over the wall, and then he got gripped by the priest's back. Or he could have disengaged, pulled, tricked, and then jumped in the water and just gotten
empty the tank, like empty them, and then jump in the water, and then jump back up or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Goblins also got a little gob squad. Over different ways of making it work.
10 free count. So Skitterlings, some of the most efficient mobs. We've done it a couple of times where we pulled it into that last worm that you saw in that clip. We pulled it into like the front end of that final worm where we didn't really need a healer, so we went and slid it around and would pull it. You can utilize it as you wish. It's a good pull. I think that pulling it is fairly solid.
Yeah, one thing that Now's team did in that clip as well was they had their druid, a DPS druid, I think, just go bear form and tank. For
I don't know if I recommend asking that.
While Now is going and grabbing the pack, so cool move, cool strats. Very, very nice Shadow and Burial Grounds optimization. It's a dungeon that, again, you need every little bit of time you can get in there. So all of these little optimizations really important to be able to, unironically, to be able to 2 chests instead of 1 chest at the 25 keystone level.
Yeah, sometimes the 3 chest is pretty tight on a 25. You gotta really optimize to get that 28 Azure Vault out of that key.
Yeah. All right. We will now move into talking about the interview between Naguura and Matt Villers on Mythic Plus. Again, the whole video is both in this Wowhead summary post, and also we'll link in the description. And we will kind of go through some of the bullet points here, but it's worth noting you want to watch the actual video. And
it's like 30 minutes. It's real. It's actually not. It's not. Sometimes some of the interviews we cover, hour and a half long. You might want to watch on a 1.5 speed or something like that. This is a 30-minute video. This thing, bang, good video.
So, Mythic Plus dungeon design philosophy. First note here: the planning ahead for longer bosses, making sure that they don't checkmate you on a 4-minute fight. Like Advisor Melandris used to do this before they capped how many clones it could spawn. Right? That was kind of, for me, always the big example. But you can see this philosophy with Talash Greywing as well, right? Where like the 4th rune reactivates as you keep circling around.
How do you feel about it in context of like Azure Blade and Last Boss of Jade Serpent? Because I kind of feel like it falls into like a similar vein where they're talking about like so Matt was specifically talking about capping rooms, right?
Yeah.
Because they know that the bosses are going to go long. But how I'm looking at this too is like I'm interested in how they think about longer bosses in context of like phases.
Time-based phases, you mean?
Yeah.
I think that's where I think they still have room to grow on like planning ahead for Mythic Plus. Is like sometimes they remember that time-based phases can really get out of hand in high tyrannical keys, instead of like the alternative, which is making the boss do something at a percentage, like the last boss of Azure Vault. Like that's a great phase because no matter what key level you're going to do, you still get the same amount of intermissions or mechanics. But like time-based phases, like Tuttle said, the last boss of Temple of the Jade Serpent, you're going to get like 7 intermissions at a certain point on Tyrannical, which just makes that fight infinitely long.
I think that time-based phases can be okay as long as you have ample time between the phases themselves. Because at some point, like if you think about it, like second boss of Ruby Life Pools is also a time-based phase mechanic. Obviously, the boss isn't immune like the big Azure Blade one or like last boss of Jade Serpent. So the boss isn't immune, but you still have to like kill an ad every so often, right? You have to like do a thing, perform an action that's going to slow you down from being able to just kill the boss.
Yeah, I think it's not an inherently bad tool in their toolkit. I do wish that we saw more of these sort of time-based phases come with damaging the boss based on like if you are going to kill a bunch of ads, have it like give you a damage buff or do that like reflect all that damage that you did to those ads onto the boss as well or something like that, and then buff the boss's health by a little bit so that it's neutral at low keys and a nerf at high keys. For bosses like that, I think would be good.
I guess in fairness to Blizzard, they have gone away from this a little bit. It's definitely been less aggressive. And they have nerfed the 2 problem bosses in question. Are those bosses okay now with the time-based phases?
Yeah.
Terrell, what do you think?
I think they're okay right now, yeah. I think they've done a good job nerfing or tuning them to the point where they're still doable and they don't scale out of control for now, at least. Like back in BFA when we had multiple seasons of the same dungeons, that would inevitably be the case now where next season there'd be a problem again and they'd have to be nerfed again every single season. But because of this current model, it's actually maybe okay how they do it right now. But I think the biggest offender is like Croth, the bird, and Algathar. That is going to scale out of control so fast.
That guy is low-key hard as hell. Like, so if you don't know, like for a lot of times, I feel like a lot of people don't even interact with like the wind goal at all, or they don't even know that the boss like has tornadoes because they don't have to dunk or anything. At a high end, that boss is outrageous. Or like if you have one person who's dead, like this is probably the most common experience with it. If you see the win goals, because you have one person who's dead, and so you have to like redunk at 4 stacks, and then you get these tornadoes, and you're like, what is this hell?
Yeah, and the fight's designed to where you can only clear twice, and they don't even spawn balls till the balls that you throw in the goals till like what 75% health on the boss, and then like 40% on the boss. I think
45, yeah.
And so you have to you have to have enough damage to cover those gaps before you have to make the goals and super high tyrannical keys. And then 2, you can only clear twice. So you have to live like an insane amount of damage per stack, clear it once and then live it again a second time and then kill the boss before you'd have to do it a third time because you can't.
Dude, have you seen the opposite be true? I don't know how much pugging you've done, but like in lower level keys, sometimes whenever I'm pugging around, we'll push the boss too fast and we won't get the second goal at all because we pushed it too early.
Yeah, I've heard that's a bug. I don't think. Well, I think I have seen it happen once, but I
It's
don't know
definitely
what
a bug.
causes that.
Yeah.
Now, they've also talked a little bit about RP. A lot of feedback has been given recently about RP, especially that Halls of Valor end RP. But they said the Halls of Valor ones are classic and they couldn't bear to do it, but they removed them in some other spots. I think I do kind of understand. Like, if you think about it, like the no God King Scovald lines are like, I mean, they are iconic, right? Like, I do understand that. I think it does like feel bad in a high key to be just sitting there waiting on RP. Like, God, that feels, especially on a tight timer. It's like when you're stuck in traffic, right? And it's just like, I need to be somewhere, but I just have to wait right now. There's nothing I can do, right?
I feel like they could have kept all that flavor in the dungeon, but they could have just let you fight him while he's talking, Like
Yeah.
like you remember the bosses in BFA? We all remember those lines where it's like, "Get this thing off me." And we're just
Don't
fighting
let
the
this
boss
beast
while he's
eat
screaming that,
me.
Like they could have just had Scobald do his rant while we fight him.
What was Flame Captain Valeri's lines? Oh my god.
More bombs. That
Thank
one.
you,
yeah.
Blair. Yeah, there were some iconic
Fire
ones there.
incoming. I don't remember what it was. I'm trying to remember.
Okay, yeah.
Ah, shit.
Okay, hang on. Knight Captain Valeri voice
Or Flame Captain
lines.
Valeri, I think is what it was.
I want these fires burning hotter.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Holy
These are
shit.
great lines.
I mean, these are great lines. Like, okay, so I understand it from an RP perspective. I do understand why they did that. To Blizzard's credit, like, and what Matt says in the interview is like, if you look at some of the RP in some of the dungeons, they actually did reduce a lot of the RP. If you look at like Tazavesh, for example, they reduced the RP in there. And even if you look at Jade Serpent and at Halls of Valor, they gave you movement speed at spots that you previously did not have it to try to
Jade
help.
Serpent, much better. I think they did that really well. There's not very much RP, to be honest. What about the whole minute-long boat ride in Court of Stars? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Okay, so the minute-long boat ride, I actually don't have an issue. Okay, this is I know a controversial take because it's not in agreement with the rest of the community. I actually don't mind the boat ride at the very beginning of the dungeon because it's at the very beginning, so I don't feel like I'm stuck in traffic. The find the I Spy RP at the end is the one that I certainly have a bigger issue with.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the one where I'm like, dude, I gotta fuck.
Guys, we have breaking news. Ulduar Zero Light, Yogg-Saron Zero Lights has actually been cleared. This is
how many minutes did it take?
It came out less than 2 hours ago, but it has already been cleared. This entirely breaks my prediction that Ulduar was going to be the hardest raid of all time. Darn it.
Was it
I
Chinese
can't
Guild?
believe for the 7th time they've re-released classic content and people said it was going to be the hardest version yet, and then it got cleared in less than 2 hours. That's nuts.
Well, ICC though. ICC is going to be different. That was truly iconic content. That was where the game's difficulty really started to ramp up.
That's where it's going to take multiple days.
That's going to be the one.
ICC,
to ruin your immersion
this
a little
time
bit,
for sure.
People actually did Elegon and Yogg Zero on PTR during the testings.
What? They were PTR tested these bosses? There was no mystery about that. Oh my goodness.
Did they also buff this classic tier by 30% like they had to for Nax?
I don't know. Actually,
before it was released. They
That's a
literally
banger.
buffed every single thing in the game by 30%, dungeons and raids, before they released Nax because it was so easy.
I think that just kind of proves how much the game's evolved over time.
Nax was easy back in the day was the problem, right? Like that raid fell over in Wrath the first time, which if it does that, like, oh my god, the second time. Anyways, okay. Let's move on to talk a little bit about the Thundering seasonal affix. This line here does hurt me a little bit. Overall, happy with Thundering overall. I don't know, man. I've kind of been down on Thundering this whole time, and I've stayed down on it. I do think that it succeeds at not being an affix that like makes it so you can't play some weeks, so like takes over the dungeon like Void Emissaries did and stuff.
Yeah,
Prideful.
Dude, I saw actually a great conversation in our podcast Discord that I think that we should I should try to at least present an argument here. Is thundering super unfun because of the proactivity that is required from the player base?
I think that's the problem. Yeah, I think like when I play an alt, I am not watching thundering. I'm trying to figure out my gameplay, right? At least for the first few keys. Like I did a key on my rogue earlier, and I got stunned by thundering because I was looking at a bunch of other stuff. And I don't have that problem in my main really anymore. But I like when I go to my alt, it's very noticeable how much attention it requires. And I wish that it wasn't quite as impactful in that case.
Yeah,
It's just weird because it's not okay. Think about Sanguine. The times that you're proactive with Sanguine, it's always really, really good to be proactive with Sanguine, but most players play Sanguine reactively, right? They don't start moving mobs until the Sanguine is down. Nobody's pre-knocking Sanguine in a pug, realistically. Kind of the
Right.
same thing happens with Thundering. And like, if you don't do Thundering proactively on, I can name a lot of bosses. If you're not proactive on Croth, for example, you're probably dead. If you're not proactive on like Raging Tempest, you're probably dead. There's so many bosses that you
Yeah.
name, like
It's so punishing that if you mess up, you're probably wiping the group. Yeah.
yeah.
Whereas Sanguine, to your point, you just heal something a little bit instead.
yeah.
I don't know.
It's tough as well because it's like it's enough of a damage buff that just always insta clearing feels bad, but it's not enough of a damage buff that min maxing it feels good. Like it's such a short duration and a pretty small percent that I don't know. I feel like it's like I've certainly wiped to thundering. It's certainly not like too unimpactful in that sense. It's just like I don't know. I'm just not. I'm not a fan. It's tough. I don't know how much of it's like rational versus irrational, but it's just not an affix I've been having fun with, and I've tried to like come up with a lot of reasons why, but it's hard.
I'm gonna make actually a great point in chat. Thundering is literally better than Lust. It's like more damage than Lust if you're
30% damage is
min-maxing the buff.
huge.
But it's 15 seconds, right? It's a 15-second buff max at the end of which you need to move to clear, right? Like Lust is a really long buff, right? Like
on average, I'd say you get like 10 seconds, let's say, before you need to clear for one reason or another before something happens.
Yeah, and it's 10 seconds that you can't necessarily hold your cooldowns for, right? Like
yeah,
so it's 10 seconds of non-cooldown. Like the thing about Lust is always multiplied with all your cooldowns. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
It's
just
tough.
think it's pretty difficult. It should be maybe a little less punishing. Like I'd like to see the stun be halved in duration again. I think they already nerfed it once, but also I think we should mention again that tanks should not get the negative charge. Like they should always get the one with 3 charges positive. That would help a lot.
But who would it help? Like let's be real. It's helping you because it's helping you because in your group we are clear. I am clearing with, or the healer's clearing with the melee, and then me and Josh are clearing with one another every single time, right? It's helping you, like, because we are able to coordinate that.
I'm not even thinking about us. Like, yeah, it would benefit higher, more organized groups for sure. But I think in pugs, like you think about the melee POV, they're standing behind the pack. They can't even see the tank half the time because there's just like these massive enemy models in front of them. So they're not looking at the tank's mark unless they're really good at thundering. And then they're gonna like look behind them at the range, to go clear. And if there's always an option around them or behind them, I think that makes this affix way more bearable instead of just like having this small chance that they have to go clear on a tank who's being frontaled at constantly.
Now, I will say that the mark going away on players' corpses after they die should be changed immediately. Like
that too, yeah.
like the fact that I'm getting stunned by a player's corpse is also illegal. But the fact that I can't see what mark they have over their corpse is also very, very bad.
You don't actually get stunned if if they and another person near you have a mark that you could clear on, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you have to clear on their corpse.
So basically,
or with the other person
if they
with the mark.
release, if they release, you won't get stunned because they're likely far away as soon as they release. But if they don't release and it's a boss encounter or something, then yeah, you're probably getting stunned.
Well, if they release, you still would only get stunned in the situation where you still have to clear with another person, right? It's like if they're negative or whatever, and you're
say they're the positive player, and then you have two negatives. Say the tank is negative, and then some range DPS is negative, right?
And you have to clear there.
Yes.
If you got 2 negatives and a positive, I'm pretty sure I've seen that not stunned, but okay.
I'm positive I've been stunned.
I thought it was the case of like if they were negative, right, and it's like you were positive and another person was negative, you could clear either on them or on the other person.
You have to clear with the corpse.
I
Well, let's
see.
yeah.
like-
So let's say you're on the last boss of Azure Vault, and there's 1 negative and 2 positive remaining, and the negative person dies in the middle of the orbs, so you can't get to them. Then all 3 people or 2 people that are alive are getting stunned for sure, and you're probably gonna wipe.
You should never get stunned by a corpse, I think was my biggest point. But the fact
Yeah.
that the debuff marker also goes away is ridiculous.
I didn't, dude. I didn't even know you could get stunned by corpses. I was pretty sure that it was like anytime you got stunned and it looked like it was by a corpse, it was because there was another person you could clear with. But okay, yeah, then that I agree that is bad.
But like even still, it's tough. It's tough to identify what's the issues with thundering. But I think that for me, it's always kind of been the same thing. It's just not the most fun affix.
Yeah.
In any way, it's like I think there are some ways that you could have made this more fun. I don't think that like there could be some things that you do to make it easier, but I don't think that that's fixing the affix, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. It's like that, and there's a lot of things they've done to make it less bad, and there's more things they could do to make it less bad, but
Yeah.
it's still just kind of lacking that like spark of like fun.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's a perception thing with a 30% damage gain. I still think like because if you think about the power, it's actually pretty strong, but like it doesn't feel strong.
Something else we haven't even mentioned yet about thundering is that you really need weak auras to do thundering in a meaningful way. Like it's so difficult, especially without weak auras. Like you're not going to do it well without weak auras. No matter
the light blue and dark blue marks above people's heads are criminal. That is certainly true.
For one, the animation's kind of rough. It used to be better on beta, to be honest, and they changed it for some reason. And then you also should have like multiple ways of seeing the exact duration on your character. Like people use the circle weak aura that goes around your character, which is pretty popular these days for raid bosses as well. Or they have like a full list, like I do, that shows both negative people and the triple positive people, so you can call out who has to clear. Like you have to use so many extra tools for this affix compared to what it normally is.
Dude, I'm a lover, instead of the list, I'm a lover of the it highlights their frames, like with the glowing party frame for the ones that I have to clear on. So I immediately can tell which ones I have to go to, or like I can human charge to them or something. And it's like,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's very good for anybody with human charge or shadow step or whatever to have.
Yeah. But like the fact that you have to have a weak aura, I think the more to Charles' point, like I don't know. It's actually not that far off. I feel like it's not that far off of like a pretty good affix.
Maybe they could have added a sound as well. Like once you're nearing the last 5 seconds of the buff, you have just like this fizzling bomb sound going off, like you're about to explode. You know, like
what do you mean? You don't have an air horn going off at the last 5 seconds?
Well, yeah, we have it because of weak auras, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Or Razagath could just show up and start like
screaming.
Yeah.
Go clear right now.
I love Razagath.
It's on your tank. Literally look at the
You're
tank.
Dead, lol.
All right. Then there's some discussion here about affixes in general. It's worth noting we have seen some affix reworking with the currently Necrotic and Inspiring are taking a break. I hope the break is
taking a break. What? Wait.
Forever, but we'll see. I don't think they said it was forever. I think they just said that they wouldn't be in this season. So
they claimed that they were retired.
Okay, they did.
The hell that meant.
Well, then in that case, hopefully it's not like a Tom Brady retirement, and this is like an actual,
unretire.
Yeah.
I would be so sad if they bring around Necrotic. That would be. Oh, it's been so nice without it. I could play the game every week. There's not a dead week for tanks.
Yeah, so they've moved down to a 10-week season. There are some weeks that are still rougher than others, of course. There's no way around that, but I do feel like it's been a big step in a good direction with the, especially like the amount of dead versus super good push weeks. I think because they've really done a good job of like squishing those outliers together.
Dude, I would have loved to hear Matt, because this actually wasn't covered in the interview. This part of this wasn't covered in the interview. I would have loved to hear what Matt Villers thought about the 10-week season. Like now that we haven't seen the full thing, but we did see, like you said, they retired 2 affixes and cut down the season a little bit, because it's weird because a lot of people don't notice it, but I as somebody who plays every single week, I'm like, I'm much preferring this 10-week season, and I'm glad that Inspiring and Necrotic are gone.
Yeah, I think the 10-week rotation is just a step in the right direction in general, because 12 weeks was kind of hard to fit multiple of the same week in a season. Like that's 6 months if you wanted each week to have it twice, which was pretty hard. Like this season, I don't even think we're gonna get a full rotation twice with a 10-week rotation, right?
20 weeks is Let's see. It's 4 months or something, right? 5 months. So 4.5. I think we'll probably get
Yeah.
just through the end of that second calendar, and then, or like most of the way through
Maybe
it.
just
Yeah,
barely, yeah.
yeah, and then
By the way, I'd like it to be like 6 weeks, personally.
yeah, I think that the move there's been good, but yeah, I just think it's been good. I don't really even have a butt about it. I think it's been good.
Only question I really had on our show notes are like, do you think the affixes we have are currently too stale? Like, do you think that like affixes should coming into this expansion had like a complete redesign? Like, should we even still have Sanguine? Because this is 5th year in a row with Sanguine, right?
It would be nice to have some kind of change up, yeah. But I mean, at least with the stuff that they do have, affix wise, I think they've mostly landed in a good spot now. Finally,
With balancing them between
yeah.
one another. Okay.
Like if you
Yeah.
think about just Sanguine and Explosive, this week's affixes, they used to be way more atrocious. Like explosives took multiple globals by even specs that were good at them. Like let alone some specs couldn't even kill them. Period. Sanguine used to last an entire minute, I think, on the ground,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
which was absolutely nuts in tight areas. Like it was so hard to play around.
yeah.
I think it's pretty good now.
Bursting used to not be dispellable. Grievous used to not lose a stack from landing a direct heal on somebody. Bolstering used to be uncapped duration. Like, and it used to scale
Used to bolster
multiplicatively
bosses.
back in the good old days. Yeah, bosses used to interact
Holy
with
shit.
with bolstering. Like,
Dude,
most of the affixes that we have now have been really, I think, finely honed. I, of course, would love to see like innovative new designs on affixes, but I think that what we have right now is a great baseline like palette of affixes for them to have, and then I think like rotating in and out affixes at the end of seasons and not inspiring necrotic, those can stay. Those can stay gone. But
Yeah, goodbye.
you know, of the existing affixes, taking explosive out for a season and designing something new to come in, and then like just kind of moving to a world where we have like 15 good affixes and 10 of them are in every season would be
Yeah,
would be
I'm
good for
down for that.
freshness. But even if they don't do that, like they've already been doing that kind of stuff with the dungeons, right? The seasonals, that kind of stuff. Like that, there's a big lift to do that well with affixes because affixes are so important for the dungeons. And I think where they're at right now is actually really good.
okay. You might hate this. How did you feel about Thundering no damage buff as an affix?
As like a non-seasonal,
It would feel pretty pointless to me. Like you just get it, you instantly clear, you forget about it until a minute later.
I actually feel like that would be less annoying for me because I feel like the incentive to min-max that damage buff, but the fact that the damage buff doesn't feel like anything and is so short is like that core tension going away would maybe, if Thundering was always just like, oh, we got to clear this instantly like thing, or like, oh, we need to clear this as soon as we can, but like let's wait for the frontals and then solve this, is I actually wouldn't necessarily hate that.
Would you be okay with it if it was like a weekly affix?
Yeah, if it was on for like 2 of the 10 weeks or something,
Yeah.
I think I could be down with that. I think
Yeah, that'd
I think
probably
the
be
same
okay.
about like reaping
kinda
as
like
well.
Quaking.
Yeah, it's kind of like Quaking.
It's pretty much quaking, right? Like as this timer, you kind of watch out for. You don't want to have like a bad overlap on your timer. Like maybe if it was a weekly affix and it didn't give you damage, it'd have like a 5-second duration or 8-second duration instead. Just kind of like quaking, where it's just impactful for a split second and then you're over it for a while. That'd be kind of cool.
I think reaping as well. Bring back reaping. You had
This guy is such a fucking
what was the affix called where you had double mobs, like extra mobs and pulls?
Teaming.
Do not
Yeah.
bring that shit.
Do not bring that, but think about like reaping accomplishes what teaming wanted to accomplish without giving you some cursed pulls in dungeons and without requiring the dungeons to have super messed up stuff. You could change it from like percent based to like after every boss reaping spawn, so that it doesn't have that
Okay.
like
I'm
because
down with
I
this.
think that I think 20% thresholds are not good for non-seasonal affixes, and I think they should be used not every season for seasonals as well. But I think that could be really lit. So
After every boss is way more reasonable to me too, because 20% thresholds are for affixes, at least in my opinion, that we've seen them a couple of times and they're always like really hard.
Wait, that would actually be interesting. That would incentivize going to kill all 4 bosses.
Yeah, and then
first,
trash
and
after.
then doing all the trash.
yeah,
That'd be
fine.
funny.
could be. Yeah,
I mean, you could actually do that as your vault, by the way. Like you
The
can
diff-
go fight the 3rd and 4th boss before the 2nd boss. If you drop down, you could actually solve that if that was the affix.
Yeah, and this is a half baked idea, so that maybe this is a problem, but it doesn't sound inherently like a problem to me. Okay,
No, I'm down.
Did you
Sounds
play
fun.
Toldagor Reaping?
yeah, yeah,
Well, the mobs got stuck outside.
yeah. I played Dual Reaping. I jumped on some barrels to snap them up in the Jess Hallis room.
Yep,
I
yep.
shot Reapings with cannons. It was a good time.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
god.
The
Uh,
cannons.
I
yeah,
just remember getting stuck in combat every time.
I just
yeah.
remember ring a piecing a reaping mob through the
Uh,
ceiling, and it pulls 3 bosses in 7 packs.
I think that they can expand on this though. I think like,
Yeah. All right, class balance. In general, they want players to be able to play what they want to play. There's a gear and skill component, but all specs should have the potential to do a plus 20 to clear Mythic Raid, and they're watching to make sure that's the case. But they want to make sure that there's things that shine outside of DPS and HPS. I think Mass Rip is a good example of something where in Knocked, all over Knocked, there's a
Yeah.
lot of value from stuff like that. And I do think they've done a pretty good job. Like, there are a lot of class utility pieces that you notice in dungeons with the way the talent trees are set up. I think there are some classes that are kind of lacking it. I think like Hunter, for instance, kind of missing something like that, especially with the
bind
gutting of
change.
binding shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that in general that part has succeeded. I think that the players being able to play what they want to play also, like in that 15 to 20 range, is largely good. I would say it's like healing that it's the least good for right now. Like you're trying to do like Disc Priest or Resto Shaman 15s. It's not impossible. There are people doing them, but it's much higher level of like skill required than doing it on a Evoker or Druid, right?
I mean, here's the deal.
Yeah.
That's only ever going to be the case with tanks or healers. More often than not, that's going to be for tanks that literally cannot do a dungeon for whatever reason, right? Because for DPS, you can always just bring 2 other DPS.
Yeah, we talked about this before, but it's like if you're playing the worst DPS spec, you can still do almost the highest level of keys if you have 2 other really good DPS specs at the time. Whereas, like the worst tank is probably limited by a couple key levels compared to the best tank because there's only one of that role.
Then there's the Bloodlust issue, which is a really interesting one because when there's not like a super good meta Bloodlust spec, you have like this reason to bring any of the Bloodlust classes, right? But when there is a super meta good Bloodlust spec, then it becomes further restrictive, right? And that's like some of that class's budget. If Evoker's already meta, that some of that shaman's budget that went into giving them Bloodlust is just being wasted, right? And is furthering the gap between them being brought. But yeah, I think Evoker's getting Bloodlust, Paladin's getting Battle Res were both pretty good changes towards making the comps more open in theory. Obviously, it depends on the specific season whether or not that's good or bad, though.
Something that made me realize is that I was pretty worried at the beginning of the season that 20s were going to be extremely difficult for some classes to ever get done, and it was like the benchmark for Mythic Raid, right? Like you want to be doing 20s as soon as you can. But the all these nerfs have luckily made it so that, like, regardless of what spec role you play, you can definitely get into 20s at some point, and you can complete them on time for sure.
Kind of really low key too. I feel like the talent change has kind of allowed not every spec is this way, but it allows you to play like builds that uh seem more competitive damage wise over the course of of like a full dungeon because you're able to swap up your builds so much and there's so much talent diversity.
Yeah.
There are some classes, like Arms Ward and Assassination Rogue, that really have to make decisions as to whether or not they're going AoE or single target. But more often than not, you can have like some pretty decent M plus build.
I do think that a really important balancing metric that's really hard to like see in data easily is what percent of my single target can I still do in my AoE build, and what percent of my AoE can I still do in my single target build? Because there are some specs like Havoc where it's just like
all of it,
right? And then there's some specs like Arms and Sin where it's like, okay, like I gotta shoot something good in my talent tree to get something good for the other situation, right? And that's like, I do think that that's a case of that. It's a really weird metric because you don't see it on any of the like graphs of DPS or that kind of stuff. But
Right.
it is one that I think with the current talent system, they really need to make sure that it's always centered, and it's an important knob for the M plus tuning.
Yeah, you're right though, because like you take an Assassination Rogue and they'd lose all their single target to go AoE, or Windwalker is the opposite, where you can spec every single target talent, and you only gain like 5k single target on a sim, and you lose every single bit of your AOE.
Yeah.
Like and then some classes like Demon Hunter, where no matter what you do, you're gonna do good single target and AOE at the same time.
Yeah, you're just
So, like, if
choosing
that were
which
balanced
playstyle
better,
you like. Yeah.
then Mythic Plus design in general would just be better for every class, I think.
And then finally, they talked a little bit about dungeon balance, which they avoid making. They try really hard to avoid making dungeons more difficult during a season. Obviously, right? Like this is we've had this discussion about Shadow and Burial Grounds and Court of Stars, where it's like these dungeons need to be buffed, but buffing dungeons is not something that is like really an option, right? So it's like, what do you do here? And yeah,
This part of the interview is basically Matt being like, yeah, we can't really pull the trigger on buffing dungeons. Unfortunately, we just have to be a little bit better in advance.
Which I understand. Like I think we've had this discussion where it's like, yeah, this is a problem with the season, but there's maybe just not a solution and that's okay.
Yeah, it is what it is. At least it's broken in the other direction. Because normally we get the Siege of Braus and the King's Rests. Which
is a problem
at all costs.
Well, whenever there is a Siege of Braus or a King's Rest, though, that is something that they should be fixing mid-season by making that dungeon easier, right? Whereas the Court of Stars and the Shadow and Burial Grounds, I think we kind of agree with Matt here that like maybe you just leave it, right? Because fixing it would be bad at this point now that people have played the easy version.
Yeah. And they have done a good job with that. Like Azure Vault and Ruby Life Pools have been nerfed like crazy. Otherwise, they'd be like King's Rest was.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, oh god, old Ruby Life Pools, every single boss has gotten nerfed. The trash pool, all of the trash pools in the upper ring.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's a very cool interview. Everybody should go check it out, of course, on Naguura's YouTube channel. Link in the description for that. Do go check that out.
Good interview.
Very
Matt
good interview.
Did a great
yeah.
job.
Yeah. Let's move on to some Q&A. But first, we get to thank our supporters over on the Patreon. They are Paul. What are these birds doing here? I love Dargon riding the wrong way and getting stuck, so I keep disconnecting. Never Nude, Ja, King of Skills, Dratnus' Dino Pillow, Crow.
Sorry, that was a router issue actually, not getting stuck.
Oh, yeah, you're having some connection problems, yeah.
Just want to let them know that, just in case.
That meme is not going to die, is it? That one's going to be forever, yeah.
That was bad. That was a bad post.
Chromed, Trekkie, Chewy, Salama Ashalanore, ZivXX, Salty Seni, Necris, Sinmora, Tankdill, Nevuk, Eevee, Unholy DK's Rise Up. Dude, they are at the top of the Warcraft logs damage statistics.
Dude, I haven't seen the Goyle spec, even though they're at the top of the meters. Like, where is the
crazy?
Goyle?
Yeah, if you look at Warcraft log statistics, it looks like Unholy's kind of low, but then you change this to 99th percentile. Okay, I guess it still looks kind of low here, but then you change this to heroic. There it is. You just got to change it from mythic to heroic. That's all you got to do. And
is
bang,
that because
Unholy's
the fights
owning.
are short and they're just
I think it is
everything and then they fall off like they always do?
How many parses do they have?
Unholy.
People playing Unholy?
Yeah, people are playing in heroic. It's middle of the pack in terms of number of parses.
Wait, there's so many parses.
Yeah. People playing Unholy and heroic. People not playing Frost and heroic.
That's a lot, yeah.
Even Frost,
even though wait a second. There's a lot of people playing is what I'm talking about.
Nerf DK. Nerf DK.
Dude, Unholy bursts single target for like 250k and then just stays there for a long time. It's crazy.
Yeah. Then Mythic Devastation Evoker, the Emerald Plague, atop the charts there.
Yeah, that spec is balanced around having the weapon.
Yeah. Describing that spec as balanced around having that weapon is certainly not true. That spec is unbalanced around having that weapon. Okay. Where were we?
Eevee,
No Trick.
Unholy DK.
No Trick. I forgot I was sub tier. Dymat, Looper, Rework Mistweaver. A horse walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Hey pal, why the long face?" I successfully gaslit everybody by pretending to be stupid last week and not getting it. Nyx, Duck Gaming.
You sure got us.
Gallic, Bruce, joke's on you. I was only pretending. Dratno Shots Abyss, congratulations on the clear. Feel strong man clap. M Sanity, Xena, Rogue is now good enough for Prog, still bad enough to be sat for SLG, bless up. Not bad enough to ever be sat for Razageth anymore, unfortunately. Red Color, youtube.com/workbringer, Alphabet Soup, Druid Friends of Evolved Gaming, number one Simsky for Trelsky, Lurka still manages to make raid and key groups while being on the other side of the planet. What's your excuse? Milk, Sife, Pone, Windwalker Monks deal with nerfs by rolling with the punches. The real meta was the friends we made along the way. The Marsh Hare, Veilstrider Svar. I actually just want to go back to the real meta was the friends we made along the way. You could do a pun here. You could do the real meta was the friends we met along the way. That's got meta in the middle of it. That's
God.
a little tweak that I would suggest there for you, Baba. Why do ducks never grow up? Because they grow down. Big Head Small Brain. Narnar TV is back and ready to press Starfall. Agitar, Juniper. Vivoker pro tip. While in Dracthyr form, if you use your Headless Horseman's Hearthstone, you look really pog. Unconditional love and support for Nox, who claims not to be a real warlock without his Iridius fragment. You'll get it before nerfs, buddy. Or next season when it is scalable all the way up. That thing's going to be good.
Dude, I'm gonna have to be in the Halls of Infusion prison.
There's a Neltheris trinket as well that is kind of OP too, for at least for Devastation Evokers. That it's kind of lit.
There's
like
that Ultimon trinket for mages.
Yeah, there's that Ultimate trinket for Mage. There's a lot of good trinkets from next season. And who even knows which 4 returning dungeons are going to come back? Maybe they'll bring back God, what's
the
an OP
dice
dungeon
from
trinket?
Freehold?
Yeah, I was thinking Harlan's Lucky Dice.
Don't ruin our Q&A.
Ratrun. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to spoil Q&A. This week's emo lyrics, and here I am pouring my heart onto these rooftops. I don't know what that song was from. Sean's and getting dismounted in dog water because you have baby legs. That I assume this is about goblin or gnomes. And dude, if you're a goblin, you swim at the start of Shadow and Burial Grounds, where that like after that first pack, there's a little pool there you swim in if you're a goblin. It's very annoying.
I always just loved being an Ardenweald and the other side, and then
Yeah,
as I pull 40,000 birds, I get to this little puddle of water and I just start swimming and I die.
yeah, good times. All right, our first question comes from Andy in Discord, who says, what 4 dungeons would you like to see return for Season 2, assuming they receive the same amount of work as the Season 1 returning dungeons? And you say 1 from BFA, 1 from
He gave us
Legion?
2 from BFA, and I cut it to 1.
Okay, well then we this doesn't add up to 4 anymore. This adds
It doesn't add
to
up to
3 now.
4.
We'll just get a wild card. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Okay.
just get a wild card.
All right. BFA dungeon, the Underrot. That's my BFA dungeon. I like that place.
I think they're gonna go with 1 fan favorite, and then I think they're gonna go with like 3 dungeons that they're going to like change. I don't want to say a lot, but like change a decent amount, like the Halls of Valor Jade Serpent thing that we saw from this expansion.
Okay.
So you think that the fan favorite dungeon is going to be the Underrot?
No, that Underrot wouldn't be a fan favorite dungeon. Underrot,
for
like
sure.
Freehold would be the obvious spammer fan favorite, right?
Underrot was voted on like a Raider IO poll as the 2nd most popular dungeon from BFA.
Yeah, it's
That's it. Yeah, that's accurate.
it does
right?
pretty well on those sorts of. So I've seen a bunch of different of these sorts of things, but Freehold always like blows out of the water everything else.
Oh yeah, well I
it's
think
like
Freehold
4-1 votes for Freehold to any other dungeon.
I would be concerned with Underrot coming back just generally because of like the maggots, because we had like between the eyes stunning rogues then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually, I think it'd be easier now. Every single class has so many stops now.
Okay.
Like, I can zone into Azure Vault now, and I can be like, oh great, my group has 3 AoE stops on every single class, or at least some single target stops if they don't have AoE stops.
Okay.
Like, I actually think there's a lot of options in the talent tree.
Any BFA dungeons that stick out to you? I mean, obviously, I think the overwhelming one's like Freehold, right?
I mean, Freehold's the easy choice. I think it would be funny if they brought back like Toldagor. Actually,
And I will say, I will make this promise now. Any season that includes Toldagor will not be a season that I will do Mythic Plus. That is that is my solemn vow. Do not test me on this one.
Let me look at BFA dungeons. Is there
There's
anything that they could like rework?
Edeldazer?
Shrine.
Edeldazer without the double honor guard pull before the boss on the right?
Do you think there's like a potential for like a Waycrest Manor pseudo rework that would make it a little bit better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
see like a decent Waycrest Manor rework. Like Heartsbane Triad would have to be changed, and like the door opening shit. I don't
Oh,
like
yeah,
that
true.
either. But I do think that there's like a world where Waycrest Manor could be updated to be, a little bit better.
How about from Legion?
Yeah.
What Legion dungeons would you guys hope to see? I think Eye of Azara is kind of an obvious one. Although that was also a Time Walker
Yeah.
dungeon.
We've already
I'd like
seen the
to see Cathedral.
Karazans.
Cohen Gang.
I liked Cathedral.
And-
After a lot of tuning, it was great.
Yeah, especially if they were willing to tune it a little bit again as needed. But yeah, Cohen was sweet.
they would have to count rework count in Cohen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they could do some like temple style trash reworks as well between that in that dungeon too.
Yeah.
Just delete some packs, add some packs as needed.
I liked parts of Cathedral. I thought it was a good dungeon.
Yeah. Seed of the Triumvirate even I thought was cool. But
I could actually be down with like a. So they reworked Blackrock Hold for time walking, some of the count stuff for Blackrock Hold. I could be down with like a little bit bigger of a Blackrock Hold rework because it did have some really good points of that
I like
dungeon.
that one too.
The bosses were like pretty bad in some areas, but I really think that we could get to a spot where Blackrock Hold could be a decent dungeon too.
And
I really liked that. I liked all the boss fights, but yeah, they had some crazy one-shot mechanics or overlaps that you just had to have like a huge immunity or
yeah, exactly.
huge CD or immunity.
I do think like boss reworks shouldn't be off the table either for these like trash reworks and boss reworks. Both are,
yeah,
I think valid things to do for them.
I think it's more difficult to get to trash to a spot where it's fun to play than it is get bosses to a spot where they're like, oh my god, this is reasonable. But I think that I'm actually more willing now to see what Blizzard has to offer on like a full dungeon rework front now that we've seen Jade Serpent and like how that went than I was previously.
Yeah, I actually have more faith in them bringing back old dungeons and then making them harder while fixing the one shots like that. I think they did a good job with Court of Stars and like Halls of Valor in that aspect. They missed a few mobs in Halls of Valor. I think the wolves and then like maybe a couple others need changes.
Fenrir,
it's pretty close.
I think they missed the mark a little bit in Shadow Moon. I don't think that's like controversial by any means, but like it's okay.
But yeah, I mean, I still stand by that the old dungeons need less tuning than the new dungeons every single time because like the old dungeons have already gone through like 10 rounds of nerfs on average, whereas the new dungeons are just crammed full of mechanics and they will need those 10 rounds of nerfs to feel like they're in a good spot.
Now, how about pre-Legion or older? Anybody got any nominations for some nice older dungeons?
Please, okay, Siege of New Zao Temple. I really think that this dungeon could be sick. I swear to God, there are parts of this dungeon that are cringe, particularly the second boss with like the trash that like runs up the landing. But I swear to God, if they rework that dungeon, like the first area looks sick, and the third area with the bombs and shit is so cool. I think if they rework that dungeon, it would be a banger.
All right, so hear me out. Terrace of Eternal Spring was a raid back in the day. Could be converted to an M+ dungeon, though. It's small enough, it's compact enough. Think of how cool that would be to do like an old raid, but as an M+ dungeon.
That'd be cool.
So that's them making like a completely new dungeon out of Terrace.
Could be cool though. Place is sweet. Do Shaw of Fear. Now, I'm not saying it should be 20 minutes like it was in the raid version, but some cool mechanics there.
So the only thing they're taking is, the dungeon itself.
It's like the process of abridging an audiobook, right? Like, you have to cut out some of the
filler,
long bit, the filler, but like, could be cool.
I don't see the world where they do that, but that would be pretty cool.
You want to pick a WoD one, Charles? Do you have any WoD ones?
I really don't know.
Yeah,
I guess Everbloom. That's the only one I remember. I was really casual.
Okay. Yeah. At that point, it's like we are into territory where Blizzard is monumentally reworking dungeons, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question comes from Toik in Discord, who says the catalyst comes soon. Everybody talk about it being too late, but how much of that is because we came into the season with no set bonuses, and how would it feel in season 2 when we already have our old set bonuses going into it?
God, it's a genius question, actually.
I think about the same, though. I don't know.
I'd say
feel like
the same.
Yeah. Especially like the way that these set bonuses work, where they're not like if next season set bonuses are more impactful and rotation changing, I feel like people will still be down bad. Like maybe a couple of specs that have good set bonuses now and bad set bonuses next season won't feel as bad, but like it's gonna feel bad, especially because like you're gonna be sitting on item level downgrades. You're gonna have like 30 plus item levels of shoulders in your bags you can't equip because they break your old set bonus that's not worth doing yet. So I don't think it would change too much of the discussion around it, I don't think.
Yeah, they've been good about tuning to the point where you don't want to wear old sets either, as far as I know lately.
Well, we haven't had multiple set bonuses that we could wear at once since Antorus, so...
Yeah, true.
We'll see.
That's been a long time since I decided that, I guess.
Koshmar in Discord asks, I'm very worried about Brackenhide and Halls of Infusion for Season 2. They seem very unfun. What can we do to convince Blizzard to make them better? I don't know if convince Blizzard is the right... I think it's more like, what are the changes that these dungeons would need that we expect here to need them to be...
Yeah,
I think
honestly, I'm pretty confident that they'll land in a good spot. But the question in my mind is when they'll get to that spot, because probably on the first week of the season they're going to be rough as hell, and then they'll get like 7 tuning passes and they'll be like as Revolt is now.
Brackenhide's first trash area is just not fun. And so like that's complicated to give feedback on, right? Because like I guess the unfun part is like the mobs designed themselves, like how are and Blizzard and Matt talked about in the interview is like willing to remove mechanics that they think are just generally unfun. Like they're willing to do that, but I don't even know why Brackenhide is so unfun yet, because I haven't like really dove that deep into it. I know like
Right.
it's like yeah,
we just did on Mythic Zero where we just plowed through it, you know. Like,
yeah,
that's
like
it.
I can tell you that it's unfun. I can't tell you exactly why it's unfun though. Halls of Infusion. I didn't feel as strongly opposed to Halls of Infusion as others.
I think it's like the parts that I'm worried about in that dungeon are the Proto Drake Gauntlet and then the watery, swirly attack gauntlet thing. I think those are
yeah. And the beginning has a million required interrupts too. That'll have to get changed.
I do think that Brackenhide's too long. It's got a lot of trash.
Yeah. That place is
A
huge.
lot of trash. I don't know what the timer's going to be, but it's certainly not 30 minutes.
All right. Next question comes from Ochatiav, which says, given the importance of external defensives among healers, RIP Shaman, why are Ironbark and Time Dilation a 1-minute CD with talents to reduce that, and Life Cocoon is a 2-minute CD when it's significantly less powerful as it has no DR component to it?
I think we've talked about this a bunch in the past, but I think it's because of PvP, right? Where like that's a huge thing in PvP. It's very, very hard to break on average, I'd say, right? But like in PvE, it's just abysmal compared to the other DRs healers can give DPS or tanks. I don't know why it's never been changed for PvE only though, honestly.
You can't, I mean, the problem is like you can't slap a DR on top of Cocoon without making it just utterly broken in Arena.
Because it is like a flat absorber mount as well on it, it's like, how does this work? And like it doesn't scale well between different content amounts, right? Like fundamentally, a percent DR is always going to be more valuable as the damage numbers get higher, and the flat DR is always going to be better as the damage numbers lower, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I think it should have a DR in PvE only, and it would still be worse than like Guardian Spirit, still even with the DR.
But you get in that weird territory where like Blizzard doesn't like to design the game completely independent for different aspects of the game, right? It's tough.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's a harsh reality because they do have to do it all the time where they split off on abilities and they tune something differently for PvP because it's a problem otherwise. And they already do it. They have PvP talents. Like, honestly, I really wish they just lean into it and keep them a little bit more separate.
Yeah, maybe it'd be better.
All right. I think that does about do it here for us with our questions and answers and our main topic as well, all covered up this week. Next week, not sure what we will talk about yet, but we will have a show in all, like, I guess the 10.0.5 will be out, so maybe we can talk about something relevant to that. We'll see. Maybe we looked a little bit at the class changes, but we haven't gone too deep into them. I don't know enough about a lot of these classes though to really know like how much moving this point here to here did, so maybe we'll start to see the impact of that on balance, although I suspect that will take a couple of weeks to really see, so yeah, who knows. We'll come up with something though. Thanks for listening/watching, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.